Welcome to another episode of our series talking about handmade, historical handmade and how it changed up until today. We'll be talking about another handmade technique that you can meet in Poland. Enjoy! Polish handmade, history and present times. Welcome to another episode of a series of interviews with handmade artists from Poland. You will find the original interview in the previous episode. Since it is in Polish, I only sum it up in English here. And this one is a translation, of course not for word, because it seemed pointless, of a conversation between Karolina and Beata Kabała, folk instructor at Cultural Center in Krobia. Beata is also a Kopczorka. Who's that, you might think? Kopczorka is a person who sells, or rather prepares, Kopkas. Kopka is a traditional head cover typical to Biskupizna. That's a region of 13 towns and Krobia itself, the town of Krobia, in the Great Poland region. That's Wielkopolska in Polish. Something to be envied for, traditional outfits topped with flower reds could be only envy for what Kopka is. I'll speak about Kopka later on, but I just want to make you keep in mind that there are three types of those head covers, those regional head covers. You won't find them because they are not that popular. That's why I mentioned this region where they are kind of characteristic for. There are three types of Kopka. There's a round one, that's for girls, one with a kind of overlap, and one called klapica in Polish. And this one is for married women. So as you may understand, or you may assume, this is like a head cover for women at a certain region here in Poland. That's really kind of niched down part of handmade heritage. But we decided to introduce you to this very interesting head cover, since it covers quite a lot of typical Polish signs or types of handmade art. What is Kopka exactly? It is a traditional head cover, and it's made of cotton thin fabric. It's tulle, I guess in English, of around 3 meters long. It is meticulously embroidered with patterns from regional catalog. Then the bottom part of the kopka is added to those materials. When put on one's head, there is of course a special way of placing it on the head, and both sides are overlapping down to shoulders or even longer. It's really hard to explain it in a podcast. But I know that you can always check on our website the photos, and it's going to be way easier for you to grasp the idea. But everything is, of course, handmade, similar to the so-called kryza, which is kind of a set. Kryza is this embroidered gorget, like a type of a collar around one's neck. You might probably think of those collars on, old paintings with nobility. So kryza and kopka is a kind of a set, something on your neck and something on your head, like a traditional set that would make the whole outfit complete. Beata told the story of how it all started with those handmade traditional embroidered elements. As you might imagine, one does not just, wake up one day dreaming of creating those traditional kopkas, right? Well, it all started for her with preschool and primary school folk bands. Then she joined Cultural Association in Domachowo region. That's this region where kopkas are really popular, where her grandmother was also a member. And this association kind of transformed into folk band. So it all started with her grandmother, taking her to various concerts where the members of the band wore traditional regional clothing with kopka as a topping to the whole look. When Beata grew up, she knew how to make those kopkas from her grandmother. But in the 2017, she applied for funding from Ministry of Culture, and she was teaching other 3 girls how to make those traditional head covers and ruffs. One of the participants of those workshops have even embroidered her own decorative head cover for her own wedding. Why am I, mentioning this story? I'm telling you that because it shows how important those words to, like, mouth-to-mouth histories, or those relations like grandma, mother, or a daughter or a granddaughter, how those relations are really important for keeping this traditional handmade alive. There is no wonder that there are not so many people doing those traditional clothes. It takes around a month, as Beata mentioned, to create only the embroidered parts of such kopka. Not to mention the last touches of arranging all the elements together, stiffening most important parts, like starching it with special rice starch and with the use of borax even, ironing, then trying it all out, of course, and, repeating the process if something went wrong. Beata goes back with memories to those times where she remembers how all women in town used to sit outside on benches while watching kids play and were working on handmade. Kids naturally used to grasp such skills out of sheer curiosity. Handmade was also a part of socializing, so to say, after working in the fields, when all the members of the community used to gather together just to sing and talk and create some handmade elements for everyday life. One might think how we miss those times, right? During the conversation between Karolina and Beata, Karolina asked her about the modern reinterpretation of her skills. As our project is all about, how to rediscover the traditional handmade in modern times, I must admit I was surprised how well Beata combines those traditional skills with modern time trends. Well, she formed an association all together with her friend Jola Łobuzińska from Żychlewo, town Żychlewo. They started incorporating traditional embroidery into regular clothing, giving them traditional elements. They even started making funny folk striptease. They have noticed that when they try to show all the layers of traditional regional clothes, people oftentimes confuse them, they get bored. Especially children, they don't want to listen to all long stories, right? So they present it by undressing a model layer after layer after layer, while at the same time explaining why each part is crucial to the overall, traditional look. Great idea, right? It is worth pointing out that kopka of a married woman was quite different to others. It does not have lace on the front, rather wave-shaped materials, velvety green colors like stripes of cloth wrapped instead of the lace on the top of kopka. And it is very hard to come across such ribbons nowadays, as this pattern is not so popular, as you might imagine, just as we mentioned at the beginning. What is even more uncommon, this tradition is not a museum-based curiosity. Nowadays, kids gladly take up this rich heritage, as there are folk groups in local preschools and primary schools. Dance festivals, smaller events are full of colorful traditional clothing. There still are lots of older women who still pass the story on to the new generation. That's really great. It was a pleasure to listen how well Beata can trace the history of traditional kopka, how it has changed from broader pre-war into more modern, slimmer after-war shape of this head cover. She connected it with both changing fashion and the fact that women wore kopkas only to go to church or for some festive ceremonial purposes. It was often so that there was only one of such kopka in the house and women went to church separately, like one after another, just and only, to wear this kopka during some ceremony or a church mass. It shows how important it used to be and how important it is still today. Beata told a great story of how her grandmother studied how to make those kopkas at her mentor's place, and how then she became a true mentor for Beata. It's really amazing how this, family story intertwines with passing on this tradition, this heritage. It is worth to mention that it is not so easy to make kopka even today, even with the machine embroidery. Also due to the fact that special cotton tulle is necessary as a basic material. Only one that allowed starching properly is allowed in order to create this kopka thing. Not everyone is good. The smaller pattern tulle is better. It is hard to get in Poland. So an effort of importing it from abroad justifies the fact that making kopkas is not a popular skill or, handmade workshop to do. No wonder that those small pieces of handmade art are best kept in special boxes and only used for special occasions. As Beata admitted, one needs to take good care of kopka. No talking about, rain dropping on it when it gets a bit dirty. When it really gets even a little bit dirty, one needs to take all its pieces apart, wash delicately, and repeat the whole process of putting together, starching, ironing, etc., etc. No wonder there are not many specialists like Beata. I have the impression I just mentioned some bits and pieces of kopka story here, but I hope I got you interested. That was the point. I warmly invite you to check the website of the whole project for more details and, of course, some photos. As me talking here, trying to translate all the minutest details seems to be pointless because one photo can, replace thousands of words. We meet in the next episode of Polish Handmade History and Present Time series. I'm really glad that you're here.